che mo fa sera?
Welcome to Talking in Stations, a podcast about EVE Online. I am your host, Matterall. I'm here with Artemis. How are you?
I'm doing well today, thank you.
Carneros?
Good morning, everyone. Good to be here.
Whoa, that new mic, too loud.
Oops, sorry about that.
But it's good. We're going to have a high-quality voice for you. And Dirk McGurk.
Hey, good morning. An hour earlier, hour later. I don't even know. There was an hour thing going on.
Yeah, we might actually have some people show up late because we all fell back. I think that's how it works in the fall. Thanks, you guys, for showing up. This panel, we're going to talk about EVE Online for the next hour and a half. We have some very special guests for you this time, as opposed to other times. We're going to start with the leader of PL, Headliner.
Hello, hi. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Really good. Thanks for showing up today. And we have Elo Knight too.
Oh, hey.
Hey, Elo. Thanks for coming. And we also have Suaz. That's Shut Up and Shave. I had to put that together. It took me a while, but Shut Up and Shave is condensed into SUAS.
Hey, thanks for having me back on. Much appreciated.
Yeah, sorry I stepped on you there. All right, cool. This is it's great to have Headliner on. I know it's a very rare appearance for him. It'll be nice to hear from him. Hopefully talk about Pandemic Legion and some of the stuff he's done in his past. It's also great to have Elo Knight. Now, Elo, I know you said you've been on the show before, but I don't think you have. I think it must have been like live coverage of something.
20 minutes or something.
Oh, we're gonna
Very small time. Very small time.
All right. And Suaz, you have been on the show one time when we were talking about MC. And I think this time it's funny because we were talking about you joining MC, and now we're going to talk about you joining PL. But before we get started, let's actually meet Headliner and ask him a little bit about his history, if that's okay.
Ask me anything.
All right. First question: when did you start EVE Online, and like, when did you start FCing? Like, how quick was that transition?
So I started early 2007 after being sort of aware of and observing the game for about a year prior to that, and I started PvPing immediately. The guys who got me to start playing took me to Provi on day one, and we gate camped around KBP, and I kind of very quickly became intrigued on the mechanics of like putting a fleet together and tactics and strategy and how different doctrines stacked up against others. And the FCing came sort of weeks after that, on a very small scale, and then grew as I joined larger 0-0 alliances like Triumvirate and then CryHavoc and then Pandemic Legion after that.
Right. I remember you, and I don't remember you in CryHavoc, but I remember CryHavoc, and that was kind of short-lived, but you were active up in the north, right?
Yeah, Syndicate Cloudring kind of area, Placid Losec.
Yeah. They were known as a really good group, kind of small, but really good. And then you went on from there to Pandemic Legion?
Yeah. So when we chose, as CryHavoc leadership, we took the decision to go our own ways. And a lot of people went to even NC, which was being formed at the time, or over to Pandemic Legion. And I went the PL route because that's where we had friends.
Oh, that's very interesting. So that was right about the time Northern Coalition was actually forming, or NC.
Yeah, it's funny actually. My corp that I ran in CryHavoc Total Mayhem actually went wholesale. All of them, they went to. I handed it over, and they went to NC, and were one of the kind of very early doors corps there. And then once they wound the corp down a couple of years later, they actually came and joined me in Pandemic Legion.
Oh, that's wild. It was neat. It was neat to watch that way back then as as a pilot and to know that was kind of the beginning of NC Dot. Because I think NC, this is kind of weird, but NC Dot used to fight IT Alliance at that time when they were coming down. Not often, but there was a few really colossal fights that were notable. And IT Alliance was the old Bob groups. Just to kind of give people perspective that, how things kind of change all the time. Elo, I wanted to ask you, when you started the game, what year did you start?
2005.
Yeah. Were you an Atlas or something like that?
Yeah, I was an Atlas. It was Bobby Atlas. I really liked him a lot. It's a great alliance.
And you started really young, right?
Yeah, when I was 11. So yeah, like.
See, okay, Rain said that the other night, and I didn't believe her, but okay, yeah.
Yeah, when you flew under me, Dirk, I think I was like 17, 16.
Oh my god! And I'm like Skyping you all day long from work and shit like that. Like, and I was at a real job, and like well, it's like I always knew you were young. I don't think I realized you were that young.
Yeah, you Skype called me during my math class once, actually.
Well, the amazing thing is that you were really like by 15. What were you doing?
I was leading Black Legion at 15. So
that is amazing. And when you were really like at your peak, like when I would say Dot, I don't know if that's your peak. That's a bad way to put it. But when you were already like a super
like I'm
advanced...
at my peak now.
Yeah, I know. Right?
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I peaked a while ago. Don't worry.
Yeah, a has been at 21. You were like 19 years old when like Dot Bros was going on. Is that about
18,
right?
19, yeah, just around there.
That's wild to think just how advanced that is. All right, and Sue, is you go way back, don't you?
I'm not sure I go much further back than Elo. In fact, I think I might have started my accounts either at the beginning of 2005 or 2006. So we've both been playing for a similar amount of.
Well, it's funny because when I think of you, I think that you were kind of like the father of Goons. The way Lady Scarlet puts it, it was kind of like your little experiment.
Uncle Suez.
Yeah. To a certain degree, there was some truth in that. I mean, I don't think any one person, even the really outspoken leaders like Remedial or Setfan or Darius, can certainly claim that it was really any one person. But I certainly helped out at the beginning and a few other spots as well.
Well, did you ever imagine that the Goonswarm would kind of be like what they are now? Is that something? I mean, sure, you didn't plan on it or anything, but is this just a progression of, I don't know, some kind of mindset that worked, like recruiting out of giant social groups outside the game? Is it a fluke?
Well, interestingly, when Goonfleet were about 200 people, we were getting pings. I can't remember the name of the alliance now, but we were getting pings from people going, "Stop protecting them. We need to kill them. They will grow absolutely huge, and be either, if not take over the game, be a massive force." I mean, I didn't take particularly well at the time, and I still wouldn't. The idea of bullying a little group, even if they've got the potential to be good. So I mean, that to me was a bit like a red rag to a bull. But I mean, there were people that had seen them in other games that I think had a really good understanding of what they could achieve. But I don't think if they hadn't had the excellent organisation and middle management in place that they've always had and still have today, I don't think they would have got anywhere, because Eve's not an easy game.
Yeah. Well, that's wild. Yeah, things are constantly changing, which is really what the nature of the show is going to be about. We wanted to talk to Headliner to bring us up to speed on Pandemic Legion. We haven't heard that much about Pandemic Legion, and some of the news that gets out there is either inaccurate or not good news. So it would be good to hear from him. What's going on with Pandemic Legion these days?
Well, what isn't going on? I mean, like it says in the Twitch chat now, probably dead. I jest. We've been going through some changes internally, and the product of those changes is starting to kind of be seen to the outside world now. We've had a transition of leadership throughout 2017 and early into this year, and it's kind of become public knowledge now that I've taken over as Alliance leader from Elise. And we've done some internal restructuring to consolidate older corps with leadership that have kind of got less time to spend devoted to the game and running their corps into my corp, which I also took over leadership of at the beginning of this year. And then that's just kind of the visible tip of a much greater iceberg of kind of work that's been going on behind the scenes on kind of every level, from how we manage funds coming through the Alliance to SRP to how the website works to what we do with our services. There's a lot going on to gear us up for the direction that I want to take the Alliance in for the future under my leadership.
What direction is that?
So the direction is that I kind of feel like alliances that are of our size are in a spot where they kind of have to make difficult choices now, with the advent of things like skill injectors, raw cores, those kind of things, which we're starting to see the effects of bite kind of like over the course of this year. We've had to kind of go back to the drawing board and kind of think about, well, okay, what used to make us different from everyone else? We used to move around. We used to be nomadic. We used to rely heavily on super capital, and now everyone can rely on super capitals, and because they're easy to obtain, they're not kind of these unassailable kind of big assets that a select group of high SP, high wealth players can obtain now, and anyone can get one. So for us, I want to kind of redefine what we are as an alliance. I want to expand our player base and grow the alliance a little bit over the course of the next year, and that's why we've got old friends coming back to us, which is why Circe is here today.
Is your plan for expanding based on getting old friends back, or is there a certain caliber of recruit that you'd be interested in?
That's very much something which we've been discussing internally, because it used to be the case that we would recruit by vouch only, and you would typically have to have a range of characters, one of which potentially had a super carrier or a titan. That won't be the case anymore, I don't think. It's like, it shouldn't be a prerequisite to joining an alliance that you have to have something like that, because assets like that are so obtainable now that it doesn't really make sense to kind of stall people, good people, enthusiastic people, active people who want to come and play the game with a particular group. It doesn't make sense to stall them on some kind of arbitrary requirement, which we used to have like once upon a time, which perhaps isn't really fit for purpose anymore. But no, absolutely not based on just relying on old friends to come back to us, because that's the way that we used to recruit, and that worked for a certain amount of time, given the environment that we were playing the game in. But that's not the way that you develop your player base anymore.
I mean, can you talk about the restructuring in the context of kind of the way the meta of the game itself has changed? How is PL looking to adapt? From kind of back in the day, PL was more of a what did they call it? Weren't looking to put down stakes, right? Weren't looking to necessarily hold space, but wanted to be able to move around out there and kind of go where the action is. How has that changed the way PL is operating today? Based on.
Well, first and foremost, we have to internally, as among ourselves, have to come to this kind of acceptance that putting down stakes and having some kind of footprint somewhere in space, somewhere on the map, having a little bit of investment, even if it's only small, is it's just the way that the game works now, that you need to have a a base of some sort, which has various facilities in it, whether it's, not necessarily, doesn't have to be a Keepstar, I guess, but access to one is helpful. But, somewhere to base industrial stuff, a place for people to obtain income, things like that. We never used to have to worry about things like that because all of our income was generated passively via moons or, and then after, perhaps sort of after moons came rental stuff, and then it sort of focused back on moons for a while. It doesn't really work like that anymore. We've had to kind of accept that and gear our thinking towards, working within the kind of construct that the game kind of gives us now, which is, you're not going to just sit around with a bunch of players getting rich off passive like tech or R64 moons that require them to kind of do a jump freighter run every 3 weeks, 4 weeks or something like that. And it took a bit of time for us to get through that, collectively get our mind straight on how that works now, because we had a lot of people who just didn't have to engage with it because they got rich a long time ago. They bought everything they needed to do. They're still living off the proceeds of that now, and to them it didn't quite compute that we needed some space to help expand our alliance industrially, or attract new people to come in, make some ISK, build up to kind of have the kind of assets that we want them to have. So that's been central to our restructuring, and kind of it's taken time to kind of re-gear our thinking collectively, because we've got a lot of big personalities within our alliance who want quite different things at times.
Yep, and I just want to clear up for people out there in case they didn't know that the corp you took over earlier in the year, you took over leadership of was Sniggertly, which was Grath Telkins, because Grath has also taken a step back. Can you go back a little bit in terms of the way PL, the Alliance leadership, had been set up for years? What was it always just one person? I mean, there was a time I think when there was more like a triumvirate that was sort of the leadership of it. You say Elise has taken a step back, but was it always just one person at the top?
Well, if you go back to the very beginning, the way we operated for a number of years was that there was a figure, a decider, and that was Seamus. And his style was to rule kind of like, it was his alliance. He ruled with an iron fist, and he made the decisions. And more often than not, people who didn't agree with the decisions were kind of left to deal with that on their own, and he would press ahead and do that anyway. And then as he took a step back, Shadu came on, and he kind of the dynamic changed slightly, and the way Shadu would run the alliance was that he would very much be in control. He had both hands like on the alliance, he had, both hands on the wheel, but he was also a big advocate of kind of having a discussion and taking on a wider range of ideas, and particularly from up and coming FCs and people who had a real energy that they wanted to like put into the alliance. And that's not to say that the way that Seamus did things was not inclusive of things like that, but Shadu really kind of championed that, and that's very much what helped me progress through my earlier years in our alliance and within my corp, and to kind of help get me the experience that I needed to take on more responsibility in the future. And then Elise took over from Shadu, and Elise has been different again. His style was very much sort of, he really championed meritocracy, whereby active FCs were given quite a high degree of control and responsibility for kind of directing some of the day-to-day stuff, and running the alliance campaign to campaign. And then he would kind of direct at a more kind of high inter-alliance level, and do a lot of the diplomatic kind of dealing that was required around those deployments. And then now that's changing again, and you've got me.
For those of us who are not in PL, Pandemic Legion was a boogeyman, was a threat in the universe. You didn't want to see them suddenly show up in local, that type of thing. To what degree is that sort of embraced within the internal PL culture? And do you see that as part of your role in the universe going forward?
I don't think it was ever really kind of at the forefront of our minds that, we're role playing. We absolutely think, we're role playing the boogeyman, and, that's we get a kick out of that. I wouldn't say that. It was never kind of what I was thinking about when we were running fleets and rushing from, one region to the next to jump on top of someone. Really, we've always just been about getting fights, getting frags, wherever possible, as many as possible, as often as possible. And I think that's central to who we are, regardless of what meta we're in, or what year it is, or who's leading the alliance. We're first and foremost a bunch of guys who'd like to go PvPing, and that's what we've always done. It's what we always will do, and the things that we do that aren't related to that are usually done to enable us to continue doing that.
So the nomadic sort of aspect of your alliance is something which, from the outside looking in, I think BL does as well. So Elo, is that sort of within the ethos of Black Legion, or do you have another core founding ideal, if you will?
I think we have like a permanent home in the north, but we deploy elsewhere, which is kind of nomadic. We spent like only a third of our time in the north so far since reforming, so it's very nomadic, I guess.
Yeah, how many guys are you up to? Because it seems to be getting big.
We have 428 real people in our alliance.
Real people? That means about 2,000 people on paper.
Yeah, I think it's like 1,400 now, I think, yeah.
That's great. This reincarnation, or I don't know if it's a reincarnation, but it seems, is it a fair thing to say that Black Legion kind of comes and goes with your activity? If you're playing, they're here. If you're not, it's kind of quiet.
Yeah, then they join PL or an NC dot if I quit. But yeah, I think it's a cult of personality. It's always been that way. Ipsimus was a good leader, but when I left, he went to PL as well. So it's whenever I'm active, yeah, BL's active, and then when I just disappear, it also disappears.
Is that kind of weird, or how do you feel with that kind of pressure? Like,
it's good. I mean, you have to hold yourself to a good standard to make sure you guys are having fun. But if you can't do it, then it's better for them to be somewhere else rather than just sitting in a dead alliance. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'd rather people leave immediately. If I stop playing, they should leave immediately. Just kick everybody.
Well, this time you seem to have a lot of streamers on, or is that just because they seem to be on shows? Like, I mean, it seems like you're having a lot of fun this time around.
Yeah, it's much easier than it was like 2 or 3 years ago with the fatigue changes. That was probably the best change they've made this year, other than the ADC edition. That was a big thing, making hacks viable again. But the fatigue changes are amazing.
And that means the reduction in the nerf that they have.
Yeah, it went from like being like 30 days max to a week max to now it's like 8 hours max, 5 hours max now. So you can actually do a lot of bridging for an op and then go the next day and continue doing that thing, or during the next day or during the night. You don't have to like just do one op a week and get max fatigue now.
Yeah,
which sucked really badly.
Let me ask you a kind of a personal question. You and Headliner seem to be hanging out a lot in Vegas. Are you guys like friendly?
Yeah, we're the best of friends. So it's a nice friendship.
This comes up a lot, and I don't know if you can. What is that? Is that a problem?
No.
Are we supposed to be enemies? It's not 2014 anymore.
Yeah. No, it's not that BL and PL don't like each other, therefore you guys can't like each other. It just it strikes me because you guys are both like incredibly storied FCs, And I wonder if, like, it's kind of like celebrities hang around with each other, that sort of thing.
He wants to know if you're cooking up evil plans.
Some of the best fights we've had are against each other, I think. We always talk about some of the days when we were living in the same station, racing home from work and shooting each other.
Reminiscing about the old days and generally just messing around, being, enjoying being on vacation. Not a great deal of current Eve stuff gets talked about at Eve Vegas at least by me.
Yeah, I think we spoke about Eve for like 1 hour the whole week, I think, maybe.
This is one of the good changes with Eve, though. I mean,
not talking about
it. 10 years ago, you couldn't be friends with the enemy. You couldn't get behind the fact you all played a game together and it was enjoyable and it was a game. I mean, it was vicious and people were mean. And now I think everyone's grown up a bit, and it's not uncommon for leaders of hostile alliances in game to be the best of friends, and I think it's brilliant.
People are still pretty mean, though, sis. I mean,
well,
Peru's r/Eve, and there's some pretty nasty things that get banded about from time to time.
r/Eve isn't the majority of that Spurg isn't alliance leadership, though.
And one doesn't go there to feel good about humanity.
It's true.
I do want to. So, Suez, you're just joining Pandemic Legion.
Rejoining,
right? You have Black Legion, basically, and Pandemic Legion, and these guys have been enemies and been allies, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was somebody put a question up that you would have to. Well, I guess it's a dumb question, so I'm just going to drop that question. But how do you feel about getting back into PL? Let me ask that. It's a better question.
So we've had an official invite to rejoin since we left. I don't know if that would have been honoured in the past, but we were told when we left that we could come back whenever. We left because we had inactive leadership, and I don't know if I liked some of the attitudes that seemed to be prevalent in PL a while ago, a good few years ago now, and I think the PL that Headliner's already outlined it sounds fantastic. It sounds brilliant, and it's something that when we decided we were looking for a change, it just sounded exactly up our street, exactly what we'd want to build if we were to build something.
And you actually do a lot of industry, right? So is that part of it?
No,
Or am I wrong about that? Sorry.
No. You're quite right. We quite often do lots of logistics and lots of industry, but it's really only a matter of picking up the slack if it needs doing. Big wars are won by having the right ships in place, and we're not even manufacturing or making money, just making sure that everyone's got a ship to fly. If you lose a fleet, you can get back into a ship, and that was something I learned very, very early on. So if stuff needs doing, we do it, but we have been and will continue to try and keep that on the back burner and just focus on the PvP side, which is really what we've been wanting to do for a while.
How do I get back to it?
Suez, can you go back a little bit and just give a brief sort of history of where you went, where you and the Corp went after leaving after
leaving where? Sorry.
After leaving Goons.
Okay, so Amiga has always had a little alliance that we just dump ourselves in when we're in between alliances, as it were. So after leaving Goons, I wasn't there for the leaving. So I mean, I don't want to speak inaccurately, but we essentially drummed up a bit of bad sentiment with the Imperium leadership because my directors felt it was getting monetized a little bit. Go and play this game because someone's paid me to ask you, and we just kind of thought doesn't really feel like something that we're happy with. So we moved out of Goons. We kind of mooched about in Syndicate, which we quite often do, in between having something structured to do. And then, we kind of covered this already a little bit, but then we got a call about World War B from Saber and Lenny, and that was like 3 months of planning and logistics before anything even happened, before anybody even saw attacks happening. So
that was Saber from Mercenary Coalition, and
that's right, Saber A, yeah, and Bosun Dubstep. Although I think his contribution to World War B tapered off towards the end a little bit.
That was delicately put.
Did he get executed or something? They guillotine him?
No, not at all. I think. He was a young kid. I don't want to be unfair to him. So he was a young kid who'd been thrust into the middle of everything he'd always wanted to be thrust into the middle of, and I think he started playing both sides a little bit. He started reveling in it a little bit. I've been there. I was there when I was helping to run Goonswarm, and we pushed Bob back. That was incredibly exhilarating, and I think he kind of felt the same way. So I understood, but I like the guy. I just we just didn't interact with him that much towards the end.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I want to go back a little bit to Pandemic Legion. Make sure that we re-emphasize that Headliner is now the clear leader of Pandemic Legion. He's taken over from Elise. He has a new vision for Pandemic Legion, and that's what has been going on, or is it starting to happen now?
It's an ongoing process.
Yeah. How is it going to shake out in the North? We see there's a lot of stuff going on in the North. I don't really know what PL has decided to do up there. Have you guys taken any position at all, or any?
Well, my position is that I'm not interested in a huge degree of infighting. I have my allies. They know who they are. We've done a bit of a standings reset in some respects, but strategically we're aligned with NC, Horde, and now Black Legion. That's my position, and it do I have aspirations to kind of increase my footprint in the North for myself and Pandemic Legion? No. Do I want to maintain a strong alliance with the aforementioned alliances? Then yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I was talking with someone, and they said that the game, the way the mechanics work now, it's really, you have to be kind of a bigger alliance, or you have to go small. But the medium alliances are the ones that are suffering the most. Does that sound accurate to you? Or can you tell us what the mechanics are doing to group
that? Where it's harder to make decisions, and you have to not fuck up as much, right? There's not as much play room as you have in a big alliance or in a small alliance. If you only form like 100 guys every day, then it's much harder than, say, if you're forming the same 20 guys in a wormhole, or like 300 guys a day, like Init and Goons and stuff like that. It's much less forgiving when you're in a medium alliance.
I'd agree with that as well.
So is that because you're sort of a target for the larger groups, or is there something mechanically that's making it difficult to get what you want out of the content of Evolve?
Well, if you mess up, then there's no playroom, right? Like if you bring everyone and you only have 100 guys, then if you get caught somewhere, there's no backup coming, right? So you have to be on your guard a lot more.
think that too, and then over a sustained period as well, you ask a lot of the same people as well, so that you don't have the luxury of rotating, members, and when members start to burn out and get fatigued from extended periods of, say, I don't know, Entosis, structure grinding, back-to-back fights, very long fights like we saw over the summer, that span hours and hours and hours, then fatigue starts to bite as well. And you ask a lot of people, and you ask a lot of FCs, so that's as a consideration as well. Yeah, and then there's very very sadly very accurate comment in the chat that says you don't have 100 PvP and 200 mining, so there's that as well.
Yeah, it's if you like, for example, with Black Legion, when you have just over 400 people, and we form 100 people or 150 people every day for a week, then that's your guys. So this is mostly the same people over and over again, because you usually only have a quarter or up to a half of your alliance active at one time. So it's very fatiguing if you're forming every day and toasting or jumping around and doing random stuff. It's very fatiguing.
It's not all bad though. I mean, like in doing that, when you have the same people, like typically the same people generally showing up day after day after day, you can build a very strong team, and you can learn to rely on people. You can develop really a lot of trust and nice kind of teamwork capabilities to actually execute your fleets, which is something that's why we haven't kind of just imploded on ourselves in the alliance over the last 11 12 years, because we've always had a very strong group of people who have held together and just carried on and picked the next thing and the next thing, regardless of whether we fed 60 Titans in B-R or got camped for a week in UALX. There are people there who work together and trust each other because they're there most days.
UALX was amazing. I just want to say that. It's like the best week of 2018, I think, so far.
Yeah, it's good fun.
My favorite week of 2018. In Eve, anyways. In Eve.
That's the Battle of UALX. What was so exciting about it for you?
Like after where we were camped in, that was an amazing week. We're just coming and shooting bubbles, and people feeding onto us every day. That was it was like a dispenser of idiots.
So, Elo, have you actually started streaming, or is that something you think about?
I used to stream actually quite a lot back in the day. I used to stream solo PvP, and I used to only get like 100 or 200 viewers at a time, but it was pretty fun. Played my 80s music and lost a lot of ships.
I'd tune in. You play 80s music. You probably get a lot more now, but I suppose you're busy running the Alliance.
Oh, well, I did while I was running the Alliance before too. It's just I don't know. I just don't have the itch to do it lately. I did almost did it like a month ago, but maybe over the winter when I have a bit more time, I think I'll do a little bit of streaming.
Yeah.
I can't. I have to set up my screen differently because people won't want to watch it the way my screen is right now. It's I have like a 2x2 box of where you can actually see Eve. The rest is overview and chat windows and stuff. It's very bad.
It's almost like you pilot by the numbers, right? You don't look at the horizon.
I can show you a picture of it. It's very bad.
I'd be interested in seeing what you look at when you're. One of the things that is notable about you for people who haven't been in your fleets is that you repeat everything like 1,000 times. Like you make sure everybody knows what's next.
Yeah, or I try to, anyways.
And then you speak as fast as an auctioneer too. So it's.
Well, I was gonna say he does repeat things like 1,000 times, but it is so fast that it just blurs into one long word.
Yeah, it takes some getting used to when people join the Alliance. It's not quite like everyone else how the FC. I talk really fast.
Yeah, so the reason I brought up that you guys were seem friendly, you hang out at FanFest, you hang out at eVegas and stuff like that is like, well, I was going to ask, like, is that something, do you guys ever compare notes? But you already answered that. You guys don't even talk about Eve. You guys talk about other stuff. But I think it's kind of cool, like, BL and PL talking that way.
I linked my screen of my picture of my screen in the chat.
We'll see if we can get that out there.
Yeah, I can confirm these two were like freaking regulars at the Cabana Star out in Vegas, and there was literally no Eve talking going on there.
That one guy's wife was really woke. She was spitting a lot of truths in that cabana, dude. I don't know who that was, but oh my,
the Cabana of Truth.
It's one of my new members' wives.
She was very woke. Oh man.
Although I think one of the only Eve things that I did hear gets discussed was when the announcement got made downstairs about the new jump bridges and no fatigue for super capitals going through them and shit like that. And it was just like this collective laugh across the.
Oh really? Do you guys have opinions on the stuff that's coming? And by coming,
I think the jump bridges are okay, but it'll change things, but there's no reason to complain about anything until it's actually in the game.
Yeah.
I'd be very interested. I mean, obviously we can't do this now. I'd be very interested to hear Celine's opinions, because my understanding is when he was at CCP, this was something that he was looking at himself. So he may well have looked at a lot of different options and potentially have a really, really unique understanding as to how this could affect gameplay. And I mean, you know, I don't want to tell him to do anything, but when this does get finalized, I'd love to see him somewhere like here talking about it.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because I think it was Sort Dragon was on Open Comms, right, Dirk, and he was saying how these are, he didn't say catastrophic changes, but he was very, well, how would you describe it? So that I don't get in trouble for describing it.
I don't know that it was catastrophic. I mean, yeah.
No, but he was warning like these changes can affect things for 10 years and this is a big deal and they're releasing it too soon and stuff like that. So I was wondering if you guys had the same impression, the changes that were coming.
I think he's talking to you guys like Headliner and Elo and.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. You guys kind of already answered the question, but I was just wondering if there was a contrast between what you guys think versus what Sort Dragon thinks.
I think, are you talking about from his perspective as an alliance leader or as CSM or all of the above? Or?
I think as CSM, it depends on how he was representing himself. But since he is as a CSM member, I guess they didn't get enough time to talk about the changes that were coming. The CSM.
Well, as CSM, he even said that they didn't even get told about some of these changes. So I mean, how in the loop is the CSM, and how effective are they if they don't even get told about the changes? Their biggest announcement at eVegas, they didn't get told about the details of it. So how in the know are they? You know what I mean? Like how can you affect the game if you're not even aware of the next patch?
One of the big factors on whether or not the CSM is aware of an upcoming change is how last minute are the changes being decided within CCP. If it gets decided with enough time in advance, they're always willing to share with the CSM and ask their opinion. But if it's only being finalized and agreed upon finally internally in the last 24 hours, there's not enough time for a cycle with the CSM, so they'll have to go in cold.
They didn't decide that on the plane to Vegas, dude. Let's be real.
But what you could... sorry, can I ask him?
There are a number of times when it came down to the last 24 hours before something was approved by upper management and far enough along to be shared with the CSM. And you might be surprised who might already be on a plane at that point.
So that makes Sort's Dragon then, Sort's comment about actually this is all happened a bit too fast. That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
I mean, there are definitely. There are definitely certain things that the CSM doesn't necessarily get the details of until basically they're almost released out there, right? Because they're trying to like not allow front running of any kind or things like that, right? Or where CCP just has that idea of this is where we're going, you know, and we'll let all of the feedback come both from the CSM as well as the public, right? You know, all at one time. But I kind of want to shift away from the CSM part of this and sort of go back to what these guys sort of think about some of these changes that were announced out there. You know, whether they believe that the new Jump Bridge network kind of stuff is going to, you know, is that a net positive for you know, let's be specific here, nullsec, you know, are these positive changes that you're looking forward to? Do you think maybe they're a bit excessive or not enough or what have you? Because I don't think Sort was talking about it from a CSM perspective as much as it was. I think he was talking about it more from, yes, I'm on the CSM, but I'm also an alliance leader in nullsec. Therefore, these changes are going to mean X, Y.
It's great if you hold space, right?
Well, I think that's the reason we're really interested in your guys' point of view, because we've heard from the big nullsec entities. We've heard from Goonswarm, the Imperium. We've heard from Sort Dragon, from people within NC, and these are big Sov holding entities, but Black Legion in particular, and even PL with the description you described about being more nomadic, although you will have a little bit of space to call home. You're not going to be necessarily utilizing these to build an empire, you're more going to be playing against entities who already have them in their space. So we're interested in how you feel about it from that perspective, not necessarily utilizing them, but rather exploiting them to fight someone else, perhaps.
Well, I think you're getting, you know, if they offer the kind of mobility that perhaps is being suggested, then, you know, you'll have to make very calculated decisions on how and where you want to engage people. Right? That's really all I would say at this point. And in terms of using them, despite not having a huge sort of footprint, I mean, there's always ways around that in terms of, you know, your strategic partnerships and the like.
I'd like to see them add some mechanics too, like the polarizing effect from a wormhole being added to those would be a very nice change. So you can't run back and forth across your region all day. It would be nice to, you know, if you jump through one and then jump back, you can't jump through it again for 5 minutes. Considering there's no fatigue, that would be a nice swap. Just slows everything down a little bit. So you can't just save people on both sides of the bridge all day long. You know, there's a chance to drop somebody on one side of the bridge and drop on the other side, etc.
I don't think that's an unreasonable proposal. No. I don't like whether or not, you know, things will shake out exactly like people think they will. That remains to be seen. I guess that's why I'm kind of reserving judgment for a while, which I typically do when large systemic changes are made. That's what I did with fatigue when everyone threw their arms up and said it was the end of days. You know, it's never the end. We will always find a way to break something in the future.
You know, I'm going to bring this up because it's sort of a tangent on what somebody just out here asked. But what's the difference between using a jump bridge and jumping via Titan a bit of time? Because of what they're doing with the no fatigue on jump bridges, do you think that they should pull fatigue off of Titan to allow, let's say, attackers, you know, who are moving into an area to be able to have, you know, a fatigueless kind of bridging?
No, I don't think that would be a good idea.
Okay.
Because then you could bridging like structure is something that's static there. So if you take the fatigue off of Titans, you could do what we used to do and go from Venal to Delve to Rome every day. Right, so you just set up a bunch of Titans. Titans are cheap, they're like 40, 50 bill to make. So you could just set up 10 Titans between here and there and move them around as you needed and get there with no fatigue. It's impossible to do it with a structure, right? So you can't bridge through enemy space without fatigue with a structure. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like a reduction on it would be okay, but completely removing it, I think, would be broken. And that's coming from someone that would abuse the hell out of it.
Well, honest man.
Yeah, it's. I would love it, but it would be bad for the game as a whole, I think.
That said, it's only subcaps burning around all of Eve. I'd have less of an issue.
Yeah, well, it's still subcap. Say, you know, you're fighting 100 versus 100, and then all of a sudden 250 people come from 6 silos away, then grab you. it still makes Eve too small, which is what CCP was trying to avoid with the fatigue.
Yeah, fair point.
It would make supers much more dangerous to use because, 1,000 subcaps against 100 supers, your supers are going to have a very, very bad day. You got to have 1,000 people to do that.
I wanted to ask about the North and what's going on there, Elo. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened in the last month or so?
Not too much. We just it's a time zone war, right? So it's not super exciting, except when one side alarm clocks or the other side screws up. Basically, we with the killing the Nixes, the GOTG Nixes, and we've almost had some nice super fights, but one side always backs down. Usually the GOTG side when it's alarm clocked, as we'd expect, right? It's U.S. time zone is our time, and when it's Australian time zone, we have maybe 70% of their numbers. So it's very challenging to try to get a nice engagement where everyone wants to commit. And Entosis timers are can go for 2 hours if everyone's doing their thing. So it's hard to alarm clock for Entosis because a lot of the Entosis timers are work time for Eastern US.
Yeah, are you expecting this is going to go on, or is it starting to taper off?
I think we'll be done in November. One way or another, I think we'll be done in November.
What do you think the result's going to be?
Well, I think we'll get branch. I mean, it's just this is a matter about wearing each other down and keeping your momentum going, right? It's a very delicate thing to keep your momentum, especially when you're just shooting structures and alarm clocking, and then shooting structures and alarm clocking.
Right.
But I'm sure we'll break through.
That's what wins wars, though, right? Is just having a bit more motivation than you.
Real quick before we say goodbye to Headliner and Elo 2, probably. Headliner, PL, are you guys? I know you can't talk about what's next for PL, but I got to ask you, what's next for PL?
Well, we're in the process of building a new team, leadership team, FC team, which is exciting. There are a lot of promising, energetic people coming up through who want to invest their time and effort into the alliance. That's what's next. You'll see them starting to make plays, and I will kind of defer to them on how they make those plays. And I've been taking a kind of a more of a backseat role in terms of FCing recently to allow them to do that, and I'll continue to do so. And then we will have a winter deployment coming up at some point as well.
Oh, great.
But we're very much open for business and looking forward for a bloody winter.
All right. On that note, I want to thank you, Headliner, for showing up. Elo, I understand you have to go too. Is that right?
Yeah, I got some stuff to do, so I'll have to head out.
So stick with us. I want to thank Headliner and Elo. Thanks, guys, for showing up. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, speaking of the North, some things went down just last night where we had 3 Nixes jump on what was it? It turned out to be a bait trap set up by Snuff. They were using
a merry band of battleships.
Yeah, 3 Dommies, I guess. So they dropped some Nixes on it. I think they knew it was bait, or they say they did. I don't know. This is a corporation inside of NC. That led to a counter drop by Snuff, which was all dreads, and there's some video out about that now. But NC had to counter the counter drop and ended up losing 3 Titans in the process, along with the 3 Nixes or 4 supers went down, but 3 of the 4 supers actually died that went down and that jumped on them initially. It was hard to get out. But faux pas, if you're within range of low sec, you probably want to be a little more careful than jumping on a gate camp or whatever.
And this was in MTAC-O, right? I mean, this was downtown Anfang.
It was right next to it, but yeah, basically, yeah. And it was an interesting move that the Snuff did. They jumped on the supers at the same time they bubbled up staging, which is SH1, and so the Titans had some trouble getting out, reinforcing and stuff. So they bought themselves some time. So that's kind of a neat move. I like to see when teams actually are using interesting tactics. But yeah, so at the end of the day, 3 Titans, 3 Nixes went down to a snuff bait trap, executed through the Darwin Corporation.
Yeah, that's a nice little trap. I've not looked into the details of that yet, so I can't comment.
That's not far from you, though, right? You kind of you were in that area.
I'm me personally. I'm actually in MTECO with a fair few of my characters, but we are currently in 01 dash, the majority of PM.
Oh, okay.
Getting even back to SH1 if they've not got jump clones, which they should. All takes a bit of time. I was surprised by the comment about the bubbles, though. I would have thought the PDS would have dealt with that. Or
they were using Hicks, not regular Dictors. They were using Hicks. So the Hicks eventually died, but they lasted longer than regular Dictor bubbles would have to a PDS.
I may be confused. The reports I got when it was happening, which were reported on Talking in Station's Discord, which is kind of cool. We dropped in a bunch of pictures and news and updates, and I think that's a neat way to do news now. Maybe that's the way, instead of reading about it 2 days later, is to just drop it in Discord as it happens. We'll see. But the reports were that it was E88, but it might have been MTECO where this happened. But yeah, so
the fight happened in MTECO on the ETACO gate. Is the way it was explained to me.
Cool.
Again, though, I mean, I'm still surprised you can't undock a bunch of Taluses or whatever and just melt those Hicks quite quickly. Although, I mean, hindsight's always easy, and I'm sure there were other people in other places, which is why the reaction time was down a little bit. But it sounds to me like just a well executed trap, right? I mean, they had 150 dreads or something.
Yeah, it was a huge number of dreads, but I don't know the number.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
I think we saw one of the Titans had 130 something dreads on its kill mill, so that they probably did.
Yeah, so this isn't something that alliances the size of Snuff, etc., could make just happen at a drop of a hat. This is a well timed and well planned execution, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it had help. It wasn't just bait, and it wasn't just having the counter drop ready, right? It was also, if you're locking up people on the deployment area of where their supers are, right? I mean, you've got this down in a multifaceted kind of trap, and I got to.
You also haven't, you should be looking at low sex systems to see if there's a spike in, if people are waiting, because 150 people.
The thing is, they were logged off, right? So we've got a lot of good propaganda videos coming out as a result of this, as you do. And it seems that one of them included comms, which seemed to have the FCs for the Snuff side basically telling all their dudes to log in at once they had confirmed tackle. So it is really difficult to predict these sort of things unless I guess you could ship scan whatever the bait ship is to make sure it doesn't have a Sino fit.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, most ships have got Sinos fit, like your Dommies and stuff like that.
Well, I'm talking about the second wave Artemis. Like, you throw 4 supers at that, and then you see 150 Snuff log in. Then you think about the second wave. Sacrifice those 4 Nixes and let them go, or do we get tangled up in this? And that was the decision. I think that was the most, because you wouldn't have had 3 dead. It would have been 4 Nixes, and it would have been a little bit embarrassing, but it wouldn't have been what it was. But so Suez, tell us about the North from your perspective. What's going on up there, and how do you picture your guys' fitting in and stuff?
So I've been pretty inactive up until two or 3 weeks ago. So I'm going to be pretty useless at all this. My kids maybe play Fortnite for a while. I'm looking at where they're going to better run through the door and tell me about a kill they've just got. So, I mean, in terms of Black Amiga, we've kept our activity up. I mean, I've kind of kept my finger on the pulse of the Corp, but in terms of what's going on in the North as a whole, I mean, I'm a bit sad to see that some of the relationships that have been built up over the last couple of years are fraying at the edges. With what seems like a bit of goon pressure, but then that's the way wars always have worked, and I'm looking forward to take Amiga into PL and start being an active part of that, because again, it's a rejoining, and I think this is something that is going to suit what our members want to do.
Mm-hmm. Man, your Corp has been around a long time, or at least it's been high profile for a long time.
We were actually written into the EVE Annals. I don't think they do them anymore, but they used to write little fiction pieces that got released. I don't even remember how often, but yeah, we've got a couple of Corp members, and the Corp itself has been in a couple of those. So yeah, we formed right as EVE begun, and apart from the first CEO, all the CEOs have been friends that, well, either myself or friends that used to play Homeworld together. I mean, it's a very tight-knit leadership.
I mean, it's one of those corps that's, I guess, like Evolution or DICE, which was Arcane Technology, that go way back to other games that were kind of like EVE. But when EVE came out, this was like the new game to play where you could dominate space and stuff. And a lot of groups came over from that. And they're the ones that had the head start on the game because they kind of knew this way, the ways to play.
Well, it wasn't just that as well. People talk about trust in EVE a lot. And to have worked closely with a bunch of people, have gone to real life meets with them and met up in other games, you're head and shoulders above the rest. You know where Random Director 1 lives, and he knows where he lives, so he's not going to run off with all your stuff. I mean, plus of course you're good friends.
Well, as an old graybeard, figuratively speaking, been in EVE for so long, and you have the context of all these years, do you have any advice for any of the other groups in the North, the South? Do you have any advice for the rest of us for thinking about the future?
Enjoy it. Except that the work you put in is real work. So don't ever take people's work lightly. People put time and money and effort into this. Real time, real money, and a lot of effort, and respect that. But don't lose sight of the fact that it's a computer game. And if you want to build empires, go and build an empire. If you want to just blow stuff up. Try not to get caught in other people's crap. Don't get dragged into PvPing all the time if that's not what you want to do. Enjoy it, because as you mature as a human being, you'll change what you want to do, and you'll get a taste of everything.
That's really good advice.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think back and it's like, well, yeah, I started PvPing, but man, was that a long time ago? I know Lady Scarlet's going to say, get into Fleet, but it's true. Like, there's a lot more to do, even just living EVE Online in your imagination and the planning that you want to execute something. Those kinds of things tend to be kind of like the veteran player refuge. I think stuff that keeps you around is the changing and the progressions and learning new stuff and all that.
Yeah, I think EVE was certainly a lot more Wild West, and one of the great things, but bad things at the same time, is everything is a lot more, what's the right word, like mechanized almost. If things change, so ship balance patches come in, it takes a handful of people moments to run through all the possible simulations and almost spurt out the best fittings for ships in certain situations. Whereas originally in EVE, we had no idea. I mean, people would fly battleships with half long-range lasers, half short-range lasers, because there just wasn't the understanding. They're like, well, we can kill the short stuff and the fast stuff, and there just wasn't the understanding that we have now. Yeah, I mean,
I know, but
about it now.
No, but Fozzie even says like he still thinks that's viable, and I don't know if he's wrong, But yeah, now everybody has the same length spear. It goes the same distance. They march, as in unison.
Yeah, that's a brilliant way of putting it, and that's one of the really nice aspects of the game that is gone. But to balance it, you don't kind of have to take a degree in astrophysics to get and logistics to get into the game anymore. It used to be. I'm sure we've all seen the EVE learning curve, and it's not like that anymore. I mean, my 7-year-old plays sometimes. He just mucks around in starter systems and stuff. But for him to turn around and go, actually, today I'm not going to play Fortnite. I'm going to play or Roblox, or whatever. I'm going to do a few hours of EVE. It's like perhaps Elo was a bit of an exception, of course, but there was no way that you could have a 7-year-old playing EVE even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Although I do like that. I'm not gonna play Fortnite. I'm gonna muck around in EVE for a few hours, which is exactly the kind of commitment. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, okay, yeah, I've got a few hours to play. You know what? It's EVE time.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a quick 20-minute game, is it?
Well, there is more to report out there in the news. Some stuff going on in the East that we want to talk about. I think Artemis has been looking into this for us. We're still not clear on everything, but let's say what we have.
Yeah, so people may have noticed 4 Keepstars died out in Cobalt Edge about a week and a half ago, I want to. They belong to a group called Mackinac Empires. And so basically we've been looking into this because it's a super interesting story, and it's more than just 4 random renter Keepstars died. There's more to it than that, and we'll give you sort of what we have right now, give you a perspective from Mackinac Empires, the people who lost the Keepstars, and also the perspective that we have from Hard Knocks, the people who were organizing their destruction.
Hold on, before you start, let's just reemphasize that. This only happened, Goonswarm did it in the north, and it was a huge day, right? I mean, it was a big deal that they could take out 4 Keepstars in one day, and it happened again this soon. By Hard Knocks. They took out 4 Keepstars. I think you have to take a minute to look at that. Like, what's going on there? Go ahead.
I think there is a good contrast between those two, however, because with the 4 Keepstars that Goonswarm took out, they weren't defended, but they had the possibility to be defended much more strongly than these 4 Keepstars. So these 4 Keepstars all belong to the single group Mackinac Empires. They're self-proclaimed industrialists. Like, they're not shy about PvPing. That's just not their main focus in the game. In fact, looking back, before the DRFL, they were a part of Badfellas, which is sort of like a semi-PvP, semi-industrial, semi-renter sort of organization within the DRF. When the DRF fell, Badfellas sort of split, so the majority of them, as I understand it, went on to join Brothers of Tangra. And then this little group, which lived out in Outer Passage, decided, no, we want to stay in our space. And so because that space was moving over to Hard Knocks, they made a deal with Hard Knocks. And they paid us for the space. They were able to live on it. It stayed under their banner instead of going under Hard Knocks Associates, etc. And they formed this new alliance, Mackinac Empires. And it's worth noting that as a part of this deal, Hard Knocks was basically required. This is the story from Mackinac Empire's side, by the way. As part of this deal, Hard Knocks was supposed to provide defense for the renters, basically protect them, jump in faxes or whatever for work got tackled, stuff like that. And they also got blue status with the regular suspects, if you will, from the Wormhole Hunting entities. So there really wasn't going to be that much, theoretically, that much to come and hunt them out in Outer Passage. But time changes, and the leadership in HK goes AFK or power structure changes, so there are new leaders in HK. And now HK comes to Mackinac Empire's, from the Mackinac Empire's perspective, and says, listen, we don't want to defend you anymore, and also you have to pay us more. And of course, this raises tensions between the two groups, and that coincides with Mackinac Empire starting to get permacamped by Bomber's Bar. And then also, of course, you had Horde, Pandemic Legion, Black Legion reforms, and they start regularly hunting the region. And then rumors begin to spread that the reason Mackinac Empire plops 3 extra keep stars, originally they just had the 1. It was an MK TAC, if I recall correctly, and it was used for like super trading. They made a lot of money off the market there. But then they suddenly, out of the blue, lay down 3 more. And rumors spread that they were laying down these 3 because they were going to let CO2 stage in their space in order to kick Hard Knocks out. Because because Hard Knocks had been making a mess of things, really making people angry. CO2 didn't like them, Hard Knocks didn't like CO2, and so they're going to come and clear the region out. This also coincided with the fact that one of the leadership members of Mackinac, Gil de Viver, is a real-life friend of Fafer, who at the time was still part of the leadership for Brothers of Tangra. And Brothers of Tangra and Hard Knocks Associates, actually all of the Holy Rental Empire, have a sort of deal, so the renters are blue, things like that. So they're a bit of a tenuous relationship there from the Mackinac Empire's point of view. At the end, CO2 ends up not moving into Outer Passage, but instead they move into Malpays, and everybody's seen all of the drama that spurred up on that on Reddit. It eventually led to Fafer resigning from bot leadership, although I think he said it wasn't directly because of that, he just wanted to take a step back. So after all that happens, HK convinces Mackinac that there's still an invasion coming, but it's going to be Horde and Black Legion and Pandemic Legion. So Mackinac Empire switches the timers on their keep stars into USTZ, which they can't defend themselves, but that's what Hard Knocks and Skill Yourself and all them can do. And then Hard Knocks just kills them all. And that's how it happened, from the Mackinac Empire's point of view. From the point of view of Hard Knocks, what they're saying is, yeah, they were our renters, we had an agreement with them, then we find out that they made a deal with CO2 to bring them in, let them stay in their space, and kick us out, backstab us. So we kicked. Like, that's just what you do when your renters try and start a rebellion. So that's the story from the two sides that resulted in, we had 4 keep stars go down, we also had a Sotio and a bunch of other structures. Things that made this interesting was after the 4 keep stars died, any structures which weren't reinforced and could be transferred, Mackinac Empires transferred them all to NC Dot. And so that sort of made relationships interesting because NC is, of course, one of the backers of Brothers of Tangra, put strains on that relationship, if you will. But as I understand it, that's been resolved.
So, like, just transferred them over, like, bam, we're going to throw these into their name? Or, like, was there any kind of agreement? Or they just did it, you know, like, boom, here you go. You guys aren't going to attack that?
The story that I was given was just, boom, there you go. And then because Hard Knocks was blue with NC, Hard Knocks couldn't shoot him.
So it saved him.
Well,
as I understand it, some of them were transferred.
Go ahead, Suez.
I would have thought once they got transferred, they'd be subject to the NC dot default docking list, so they wouldn't have been able to dock them. Yeah, they wouldn't have been able to use them at all. But this is why Eve's great. Stuff like this. I mean, I looked at the kill board, having not really looked at the kill board much very recently, and I actually thought it was just a bug. I'm like, whoa! So I'm really interested to hear this story, and it's. I mean, I've heard people joke that reading about Eve is way more fun than playing it, and stuff like this is just fascinating. You know, there's all this focus on what's going on with Goons or GOTG, and really there's these wonderful stories that people really don't get a chance to hear. It's brilliant.
I couldn't agree with you more, and what a great setup, because and I tend to not want to talk about something until it's actually happening. Well, actually, that's not completely true, but I'm excited that Talking in Stations will be starting to develop more news, but in a way that is telling stories that aren't really told, just like this one, and doing it in the context of EVE Online. So we want to do more storytelling instead of straight stats and jargon and that kind of stuff. Our goal isn't really for the players that are watching us for this show. This show is fine. It's for veterans. It's for people who already know EVE Online. but we really want to like make something that people who don't play EVE can read and understand, and they can draw their imaginations in.
And when would that show be running, Madrol?
Well, that show is going to start running. You'll see it. And actually, it'll be on Talking in Stations. We put up a Twitch, our own Twitch station. So we'll be putting stuff up on that. You'll see videos up on that. But I'm talking about writing and actually readings of stories, like a podcast version, and video. Those three mediums, we're going to try to use those and even leverage some social. All that is happening this winter as we spool up. You can see on our Discord that we're looking for people to help us out with this, because we certainly can't do it all ourselves. But all that to say, Sue, is I couldn't agree more. Those are the stories that really draw people in, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen comments many times, even on places like Reddit. You get something interesting happening, and somebody will pop in and go, I've never played EVE. I've no desire to play EVE, but I still come back to read the stories and listen to the comments. I'd also like to say that the idea of having a medium that tries to get the story of these smaller conflicts out, I think that's brilliant, and I think it'll be great for the game.
Yeah. And I think that would appeal to people who don't they're not caught up. They don't know all the stuff, and they certainly don't know the history like we do, like you do, Suez. We've been here, a decade or more, and have been a part of all the things that have happened. So not only do you know the story that's out in public, but you know the story that's behind the scenes in private too. But not everybody has access to that kind of stuff. Sorry, Dirk, what do you say? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Dirk.
No, I was just gonna say, because I know that there's always been kind of this want, and not just by Talking in Stations, but going back years, right? To tell some of these other stories that are going on out there, right? And there's always been these kind of roadblocks to doing it. Number one, the news doesn't necessarily get out about these things. If it wasn't for 4 Keepstars dying up there, I'm not even sure the news about this would have gotten out all that much. When you start talking about smaller entities, number one, their voice doesn't project very far if they do talk about it, but generally they don't talk about it. And that might just be because they don't talk about it, and it might be because they don't want to, because then it draws attention, to where they are, right? I mean, if you're a smaller entity out living in Null, let's say, you maybe don't want to talk about some great, exploit that, and I don't mean exploit in kind of a game mechanic standpoint, but, this great thing you did, because then all of a sudden somebody goes, oh, this person's over there, this group is over there, and they're stepping up their game. Let's go take a look at them.
Yeah. It's called security by obscurity, right?
Exactly.
All those sandcastles.
I think at the moment, as much as people talk about, or have talked about nullsec being stale or what have you, sort of the big fish in the pond, their need for content is satiated, right? They have people to shoot, they have stuff to do, so they aren't necessarily looking for any small fish they can go and jump on. Like a good example of this is the situation going on down at Scalding Pass. We've got the Right Order taking SOV. They recently kicked out BFG, Brute Force Solutions. There's now a new group poking in. They're taking on Bright Side of Death, BSOD. And this is all happening when half of the SOV in Scalding Pass is owned by Fraternity. And Tri, of course, is allies with Fraternity right next to it. Geography-wise, they're keeping an eye on it, but they can't be bothered, right? They have their content. They've got PvE to do. If they want a Rourke mine, they can go. There's a bunch of stuff going on in the north. So these stories can happen, and they can even be talked about and brought into public light. But the big fish just don't care, basically. They're busy elsewhere, if you will.
Well, it's hard to move, but
I'd also say that the guys that are running big alliances understand that their content will ultimately die if they overfish.
That's the term I use a lot too. But MC recently, you were part of Mercenary Coalition. They decided they were going to let go of SOV and move. It looks like they moved to Great Wildlands to do this sort of thing, right? They're going to go seek out opportunities to actually have smaller fights.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea. Yeah. That's not actually, that didn't contribute to us leaving.
So that wasn't the reason you guys decided to switch alliances?
No. I mean, we've kind of alluded to it before, but we really spent a lot of time in the background helping fill cracks, be it with logistics. And I mean, the MC logistics are brilliant, but there's always more to be done. Or building stuff if stuff needs building, etc. We really wanted to get away from that, and we started to get into a point where we'd kind of moved once or twice, and then moved again, and then we're going to move again. And my guys kind of went, "Look, this isn't working for us now. We've got no specific issues, and I mean, my directors and the MC guys are still in rooms and they're chatting, and I mean, Sling's been away, but there is no animosity there. There's absolutely none. And if I can do anything to help, I will. And the same goes for the rest of us. But we wanted a bit more of a clear path in PvP.
Yeah. You said something earlier. I have to push you on this. You don't have to answer, but you said there were elements in PL that you just didn't want to participate in. What was that?
So that was in the past.
Yeah.
I think there was. I mean, I think it was a lot more cliquey than it is now, and was at the beginning. There were certain groups of people that kind of meme their way up, and it all became about shitting on people if they didn't do the right thing. It didn't, it was all be perfect or get out. And I think Headliner summed up really well when he said there's people of all wealth, all skill levels, both in-game and skill points now. I mean, you can have a big credit card, have a lot of skill points, and still have no clue. So you can't get away from that anymore. And the PR that Headliner was talking about wants to just make people as good as they can be, just as openly as he can, and that's really, really quite an exciting and promising prospect.
So the inner shaming of people who screw up, or the arrogance of one click to another, that kind of stuff's been. You think it's moved out?
I've not seen any of it. I've been hypersensitive to it as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if that'll ever get completely washed out of it. Yeah, because look, let's be honest. Headliner was one of the guys that was known for being hard on mistake makers.
I mean, Canaris can probably say a bit more about this as well. But I've done my time shouting from the top as well. But I've moved on a bit. I'm not massively interested in that anymore. And actually, when you've got a pool of
kids now,
yeah, exactly,
you can shout at them.
but when you've got a pool of 15,000 people, you could be a lot more of a dick as well.
I have rose-colored glasses about those past fleets together.
Yeah, but I mean, my trick was always to hand over the fleet when the conflict actually started. I'd entertain the fleet up until the fight, and then hand the fleet over to someone to call targets, i.e., do the work.
He was the morale FC commander, fleet commander.
Well, I mean, I'm a strong believer that leading a fleet or a group in EVE means showing them a good time. Pardon the bad term, but you can have tons of fun if you lose. If you take out 50 dudes and just lose to 110, how good? Say equal ships even. I mean, that's amazing. If you take out 200 dudes and kill 10-man corpsman fleet, it's not really fun. So it's not about the winning or the losing entirely. I mean, it helps, but it's just about coming back to my earlier comment. It's about having fun in the game.
Yeah. Well, I think we've gone through the topic. There's a lot of stuff that happened. I know I'm missing 3 or 4 things. Do you guys, is there anything else that you guys remember as news?
I don't know about news, but I think on behalf of the audience, I want to ask: is Suez going to sing for us today?
I saw his guitar earlier.
I'm not sure anybody wants that. Yeah, no, I'm not sure anybody wants that.
How's he going to push the talk and strum the guitar at the same time?
Because you change it from push to talk to go live.
Oh, can you sing us out?
I do have fond memories of hearing Little Bees in Fleet and Fountain War.
We're putting him on the spot. That's
late at night.
There you go.
He's grabbing the equipment.
Oh, dear Lord.
We have to make sure we don't key up and talk while he's doing.
Yeah. He's got to adjust the lightings, the spotlight. Yeah. Blackbird. Everybody's requesting Blackbird.
Play some Blackbird, man.
Free bird.
Anything you want, we'll end after that.
I'll do. We've only got like 30 seconds left or something, right? I'll do 30 seconds. Little Bee.
Oh, I hope I don't cry.
Talk key. Is it like? Do you want to say anything else before I do this?
Nope, you'll sing us out. I just want to say that's all that we have for this week. We'll see you next week on Talking in Stations. Here is Suez.
There we go. Is that working? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's been a while since I played this. Oh, it's not even in tune. When you find yourself inside a bubble, hold your cloak away from me. Always follow orders, little bees. Then you're out of darkness. You are standing right in front of me. Always follow orders, little bees. Little bees. I can't hear that note anymore. Little bees, little bees. X for past destruction, little bees.
Thank you.
I can't hit that note anymore.
That's awesome.
That's great.
There you go, Little Bees. Just for you guys.
Thank you very much.
Your Uncle Suez.
You're going to have to make little phage now.
All right. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.